whether or not you say anything or talk to us or whatever is totally optional for you, okay? So, so I just invite everybody out to be able to share your thoughts. This is kind of an open discussion. I just kind of moderate, ask questions, give a topic, that kind of thing. And then we just kind of go from there. Thanks, baby. So tonight's topic is, by the way, I hope you guys got my email. I've been sending out emails about what we're going to be talking about in the next few weeks and stuff. I'm hoping that you do. Tonight's topic, we have visited this topic before. We have talked about it a little bit. We're going to talk about it a little bit more tonight because it's a big topic for us as single adults. And it comes up a lot. And we have a lot of new people and varying opinions and experiences and thoughts and growth in our journey. And so I love talking about this at least once a quarter. And that is the topic of dating. Now, I think it was last week where we talked about online dating. We're not going to talk about online dating tonight. We already discussed that topic. Tonight we're talking about dating itself, like the actual act of going out with somebody, which to some of us might be a little foreign, other of us not so much. But we're going to talk about healthy dating. We're going to talk about what a healthy relationship looks like. I have let you guys know that in my experience, I have learned what, let's just say, an unhealthy relationship looks like. And I've learned different characteristics of what to look for in someone that may be or has a high potential of being, let's say, unhealthy in a relationship. And unhealthy, I mean an addict, an abuser, somebody who's controlling, somebody that would not help you to feel safe in a relationship. Okay? Now, we're going to have ups and downs. We're going to have good days and bad days. You're not always going to get along. You're not always going to like that person. You know, that's totally normal. Okay? But what I'm talking about is the norm of being healthy in a relationship, okay? And what that looks like, what that feels like, what we do from the start to set up a good, healthy relationship, okay? Now, I learned a few years back something that to this day still plays itself out over and over and over. I have yet to meet an exception. I had a therapist a long time ago say, without exception, she has not met an exception, sadly, nor have I. What an abuser, an addict, or somebody who's, we want to call them controlling, this is men or women, okay? So guys, listen up. If the person you just meet starts calling or texting you every day, okay? If the person you just meet puts a lot of pressure on you, shall we say, to be in a relationship really fast, and then they add what I call intimacy, church standard intimacy, holding hands, kissing, that kind of thing, okay? Within, let's just say the first couple of weeks, first couple of 3 weeks of meeting them, okay? If they start saying things like, I'm just checking up on you, you know, now, if they show signs of controlling, that would be something different. Controlling would be somebody that, say, wants to know who you're with all the time and is checking up on you 2 or 3 times a day to find out what's going on in your life or whatever. But to this day, I have not met an exception. And I keep thinking, Maybe this one will be good. Nope. It hasn't happened yet. So just, let me pull in a couple other people here. So yeah, so whenever, this is men and women. Healthy does not mean, oh, and not only that, they're very charming. Oh, they're ultra charming. They are smooth talkers. They know what to say. They know how to make you feel good. They are people, which is awesome. We love people. People does not equal addicts or abusers or controllers. Okay, that's not all what they mean. That's not all what they mean at all. But let's say, for instance, the person that you're going to be meeting is saying things like, my divorce was horrible, and my ex did this, my ex did that, my ex did the other, and it's all their fault. Anybody that says that, myself included, and you people know my story. I'm not, or a lot of you do. Like, it is, you don't blame everything on the ex. We takes two to tango. And if somebody wants to portray themselves as, I did nothing wrong, and they were all to blame, I would suggest that you not get into a serious relationship with that person. Because we all do something. For instance, and I've shared before, there's something about me that I have learned throughout my life, and I don't know what it is, but honestly, it's a sense in some ways. But I can go into a room, and the men that I am instantly physically attracted to, 9 times out of 10 will be an addict. Now, I learned that about myself a while back. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to be friends with them, and it doesn't mean that I wouldn't even go out with them, because being an addict could also be a recovering addict, and the atonement is awesome. I love the atonement. The atonement brings peace to our lives, brings forgiveness, and wipes the slate clean. Okay, so I'm not saying that if somebody at one time had an issue, then they're not dateable. That's not at all what I'm saying. There are people that have gone through the recovery and have, cleaned up their life or whatever, and are better now. Okay, so but I'm just saying that for some reason I learned that about myself, and I'm like, isn't that interesting? That and maybe you figured out something about yourself, how you are drawn to certain people. But I also am right now doing a class, and it's called Healing Your Family History. It's an online course, and I do a little bit with a psychologist that wrote the book, and live coaching. Oh, hold on, I think we got some background stuff coming from somebody. Anyway, so what I've learned is that I didn't grow up in a happy home, okay? And some of the stuff that has been going through my head and plays through my head is negative, that stems from family history. And not just my parents. Probably their parents told them the same thing, and their parents told them the same thing. So I've got generations of abuse that I have come from. And a lot of the mindsets that we get into, and a lot of the things that we think, comes from our family history, or maybe somewhere along the line you've learned that I'm just never going to find anybody. There are just no good men out there. There are just no good women out there. I'm just going to be single the rest of my life. Anybody ever said anything like that or thought anything like that? I know, right? You just kind of think, I'm just doomed. It's because I'm this, and this. Nobody in the church is going to accept me. Nobody's going to want to go out with me. I remember saying to myself within the first 5 years, I don't do it anymore, who in their right mind would want to marry me? I said that. I said it out loud to people. I said it through tears, painful tears. Who in their right mind is going to sign up for this mess? because it was a mess at the time. It's not now. But back then, it was a bit of a mess. But what I've learned is that my mindset is going to then determine who I attract. For instance, if you feel like, hold on, if you feel like no one's ever going to love me, or I'm just stupid, or I just this, or I just that, and it's negative, you're going to attract that. That is exactly what's going to be reflected back to you. So if you ever wonder, why can't I find somebody that's going to love me? I want you to look at yourself and think, do you love yourself? Do you love and accept the person you are now? Some of us are at a point where, yeah, we think we're okay. We're kind of awesome. And that's a good thing, not a conceited thing. And I don't mean an arrogant thing. I mean, are you genuinely okay with who you are? Okay? We're going to talk about this for a little bit. I'm almost done with my 15-minute ramble here. And then we'll get into you guys talking and sharing your thoughts. And then we're going to get into the actual dating. But I want to talk about this first because who we date matters. It says a lot to the world. It tells people who you think you're worth, what your value is, everything. Okay? And I've shared with you guys before, I've been married 3 times, and the people that I married were all addicts, abusers, or really people. And that's what I came from. It's what I knew, but I'm not going to do that again. I'm not signing up for that again. I know what that looks like now. I know what it feels like now, and there's just no way I'm going to sign up for that. And it's not a thing of fear. It's just a choice that I'm going to make. All right, so back to the mindset. We're going to attract what we reflect. Think of yourself like a mirror. What your thoughts are. Let's say you put yourself down. You're going to find somebody. You're going to attract somebody that puts you down. Let's say you have the mindset, and maybe you don't want this mindset, but maybe you just feel like you're never going to find anybody that stays with you. You're going to attract somebody that's not going to stay with you, going to leave. That abandonment thing, right? But what I have found, the underlying issue with most people dating or not dating is fear. Fear. Because a lot of us have gone through some stuff. If we've gone through stuff from childhood, if we've gone through stuff as an adult, if we've had bad marriages, we've gone through some stuff. And there's an underlying fear of dating. So there will be women that I hear complain about men. There will be men that I hear complain about women. Well, why don't they do this? And why don't they do that? Why don't they step up to do this? And why doesn't she do it this way? And if she would just do this, then she could date. She could find somebody to date. Anybody say that to yourself? If only I was this way. Maybe I could. If only I looked better, my hair was better, my weight was better, I had more money, whatever, then maybe. So for tonight, I want you to entertain the idea of getting rid of the if only thought. Because if only doesn't matter. And if only is wishful thinking, okay? You want people to accept you the way they are, who you are, without having to change. And if you can't find somebody like that, then you don't need to be with them, okay? So, with that said, I want you to throw out some thoughts, and then I'm going to come back to a few other issues that are brought up with dating. And then we're going to get into a little bit more. So I'm going to open this up another 10 minutes or so, and let's chat about this. What are your thoughts about what I've said about the whole attraction, who we're attracted to?
Can I respond?
What was that?
Can I respond?
Yeah, come on. Yeah, hey.
So my my supervisor from internship for mental health covered this kind of thing where he talked about basically, you know, people might divorce someone because they think it's like just that person. And a lot of times they're from issues they haven't worked out from their own childhood. And basically, if they don't work it out with the first spouse, it's going to show up again and again and again until it gets worked out. And I've wondered about this too. Like, and something you said about kind of like the mindset, I would like, I believe in affirmations. I think they're awesome, but like, I know that I don't always stick to them. And so like, I would love, you know, something that would get me on track with like everyday affirmations, like I am lovable, I am this, and like, you know, affirmations that put my mindset in the way that would attract that which I'm looking for. And it is interesting what you said about like who you date, kind of what that says about you. And even in the same way of like what kind of friends you keep, it kind of would clue people in as to like either you're likely like those people or that's kind of, I don't know, it just seems like when I look at what I would want in a mate, it would be someone who they surround themselves with people that are kind of like them, not, you know.
I totally get that. So I want you to look into a book by Noah St. John. Some of you have heard me talk about this already. And it's called Afformations, the best afformations, Afformations. And there's even, if you have an Android phone, this won't work on an iPhone, but if you have an Android phone, it's called the Best Afformations app. And you can get different things there. So this is in the form of a question. So instead of saying, I am valuable as a person, or I am awesome, I'm kind, I'm lovable, I'm whatever you want to say. Instead, it reaches into a different part of your brain to retrain your brain to say, why are you lovable? How are you lovable? Now, then your brain goes, wait a minute, I got a question I got to answer. Instead of arguing with a statement. How many of us will say, I am awesome, and believe it? How many of us will say, I am totally lovable? Or anybody would be just so honored to be with me and believe that statement, right? Now, women deal with this more than men, I know. Now, but the affirmations, what I love about that is it does retrain the brain so that then afterwards, a few months, year later, I can make those statements now, and I believe those statements about myself. Again, not in an arrogant way. People know I'm not, I hope I don't come across arrogant. Anyway, so, but I'm confident about who I am. I know who I am. I like who I am. I like the woman I've become. I am nowhere near perfect. I've still got a long way to go. That's why I'm grateful I've got another 50 years on this earth to do that. But right now, I want you guys to entertain the idea or look into Noah St. John affirmations and start asking questions to yourself every day. Why would a man be lucky to have me? Why would a woman be just thrilled to be dating me? Ask yourself that, okay? Great, though. I love you brought that up. Thank you. Is your name Larissa? No, is that somebody else? Okay, are you Larissa? You're muted. Okay. All right, awesome.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
I think it's very true what you said about we attract the kind of people that we are and that we think we deserve. I know for myself, there's a big difference in my dating and getting to know other people when I am confident in who I am and when I feel good about who I am versus when I'm having a downtime. So I think that's absolutely true, is you have to be comfortable with yourself, because if you're not, it doesn't matter who you find, like they're not going to fix you, you know?
Thank you for sharing that. And I love your phrase about getting what we deserve. Now, I want to really challenge that though, just for a minute, or add a little bit to it, not really challenge it, but add to that. In that we don't really get what we deserve. We get what we believe we deserve.
Yeah, what we think we deserve. Yeah.
Right. What we think we deserve, right? Love that. That was like blowing my mind up when I learned that a while back. I don't remember how long ago it was. But when I realized that I was getting what I believed I deserved. That was where all the bad relationships were coming from. All the unhealthy relationships were coming from. And now I know I deserve better. And you all deserve great relationships. All right, next comment. Anyone else?
I was just going to say that this is great stuff, like what we're talking about. It's really, really good stuff. I'm glad we're bringing it up, and I totally relate to what we attract. And I have found that I attract men who are not available and who are going to always abandon me. And so the hardest thing for me right now is figuring out how to untangle that and kind of where that core lies, and what can I do to change it. And but I'm pretty proud of myself. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty proud that I'm even able to say that's what I need to do. Like, I'm glad that I'm able to say there's something about me that's attracting that, and that's what I have control over. And I don't have control over anything else but what I hold true for myself. And I can't fix anyone else, but I can work on me. And that's been pretty scary. I haven't been able to do that. I feel like I'm in a better place now through therapy and stuff, that I'm in a place where I really can admit that to myself, because admitting that we take fault, that we have some responsibility in that, is scary. And, you know, it's natural to want to think that it's somebody else and it's not me, you know, that I'm sweet and kind and, you know, a good person. So how can it be me? And so I'm just really grateful for the opportunity we have to really discuss these things. And I can't wait to hear what else we learned tonight. So thanks for this. This is awesome.
Yes, acknowledging it is huge. Acknowledging our part in it, whether good or bad, because, you know, like I said, none of us are perfect. All right, anyone else? I think I should have some crickets.
When you're saying that when you're saying you attract what you feel you deserve, is it? And I'm trying to kind of process it in my language, I guess, how I think. Are you trying to say that we accept, or are we settling for less than we deserve?
Okay, repeat that, because I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Are you saying that we're having a tendency to settle for less than we deserve?
No, not at all. What I'm saying is that we tend to attract, like, for instance, for those of us that have been in unhealthy relationships, we tend to attract what we believe we deserve, so we need to change our mindset to attract what we really deserve in a healthy relationship. That makes sense?
Okay.
Maybe?
I'll have to read the book and think about it.
No problem.
I know people have a tendency to, you know, somebody gives somebody attention, and, you know, they're not used to getting a lot of attention, and so, you know, they accept that person to their life because, you know, it's an opportunity, and they don't want to miss out on an opportunity. So I'm just trying to process. I'll process it, but I've never heard of this before.
No, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. So we all want a healthy relationship. So now we're going to talk about, well, in the next few minutes after we finish this up, but we're going to talk about what a healthy relationship would look like when you start off in a healthy relationship, and then getting what we actually deserve in a relationship. Does that make sense? Hopefully. It is kind of a different concept. Most of the women are going to understand what I'm saying, because most of us beat ourselves up in the head. Am I right? A lot of women throughout their life, sadly, are just really down on themselves. And it's sad to me because I've learned through the years, we influence generations, and Satan really wants to bring us down. And as men, there are some men that will do that, but men in general tend to accept themselves more, flaws and all. Women, not so much. We're pretty much harder on ourselves about our flaws. And we think for some reason, we've just got to present ourselves perfect to the world. There are men that still believe that, but not as many. Did that help? Maybe, maybe not. Am I like throwing everybody a curveball here? All right.
Can I just give him an example? Paula, can I just?
Yeah. Go right ahead.
Okay. So, I have abandonment issues. I don't know my father, and I never met my father. My mother was married and divorced 3 times by the age of 21, and they were all members of the church. I was born and raised in the church. I saw very abusive, emotionally and mentally abusive relationships with my mother through men of the church, priesthood holders. They were all temple marriages. And by the time I was 19, I left the church for about 9 years. I had relationships with different men, different times in my life, but nothing stable, nothing real. I have 2 children by 2 different fathers. And every man in my life has abandoned me. I quit dating for 15 years. I just took care of my children. I did work, home, church, kids. That was it. Nothing else. I just recently started dating, and every man that I have attracted has been a man that is not available for me. They'll take what they can from me and enjoy my company, tell me how awesome and beautiful and wonderful I am, but they are not available to me to be in a relationship with me. Every single man that I come in contact with, and even up until the most recent man who I had a stronger connection with than any of the other men, is not ready for a relationship, although we were doing relationship things. So I've put myself in a situation again where they're going to leave me. So there's a subconscious fear. And I know this about myself because I've been working very hard in therapy and trying to figure it out. But I have a fear of always being abandoned. And I'm terrified of the real thing because I don't even know what the real thing is. And I don't know how to get to the real thing. And so because of that, that's who I attract. And that's what I think I deserve. And it all boils down to a low self-esteem, a level of unworthiness, a level of not good enough. And so I end up finding men who are not going to be available for me and going to end up leaving me unless I address it, which is what I'm trying to do. I hope that helps.
Awesome.
I think so. I know for me in dating, one of the first things I've learned that you have to do, so even the guys can get taken advantage of, is set boundaries, expectations. One of the things I told my kid, we used to teach Sunday school for the teenagers. I tease them, I say for the guys, is, she's thinking lobster, I'm thinking Burger King. The idea being is when we set boundaries and expectations, we don't allow other people to take advantage of us. And that way, actually, and I tell my kids this, people respect and want boundaries. And it actually makes you more, I think it makes you more attractive when you do set boundaries for yourself and for other people. And so interesting. It's interesting. I'm definitely going to be thinking about this because this is not something I, ever thought about as far as when it comes to dating you attract, because I haven't attracted any bald women yet. So, but maybe, you never know. It was a joke. So it's interesting. Thanks for sharing.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to move on a little bit. And then we're going to talk about seasons and stages of a healthy relationship and what that looks like, what that feels like, and what that would actually be like. I can tell you, I don't think I've ever been involved in a relationship like this. So, but I do know that from those that have, it is quite amazing because all of us want to be in some form of a healthy, happy, long-lasting, trusting relationship, safe, right? We want to feel secure. We want to know they're always going to be there. They're always going to love us no matter what. Good days, bad days, whatever, right? So, but there's a season to it. And a lot of people, and I think a lot of it is underlying fear. A lot of it is, we're in a church where a lot of the emphasis is on marriage and family and whatever, and that's our end goal for a lot of us, okay? So a lot of people are really be like, they find somebody, they connect, and they're like, woohoo, I'm going to get into this, and I'm going to make this work, kind of thing. And that's where we see a lot of people getting engaged really fast, like within 2 weeks, within a month, within 2 months, within 3 months, with whatever, really fast. And sadly, a lot of them end up getting a divorce a year later, or within a year later, or less. And then they wonder why, and it just doesn't always work. So that's why I'm going to talk to you about healthy stages of relationship. When a healthy seasons and stages of relationship, when you first meet somebody, they're going to take some time just to get to know you. They're going to start asking you questions. They're going to. Okay, Heidi. Yep. For a lot of people, there is the season of just getting to know somebody and taking the time. Too many feel like they want this to work so bad, so they're going to do whatever they're going to do to make this work and make it happen. And they don't really take the time to get to know anybody. Instead, they want to just, write off everything else and just go, okay, this is it. It's going to be it. And we're going to make it work within 2 weeks. And then that's it, right? So within a short amount of time. So healthy is you're going to start off going to be in group settings, if you will. Now, we're older. We're not necessarily teenagers. Thanks, Betty. And we are one where dating for us at this stage, older than 30, is way different than the teenage time. Just we've got to somehow get rid of the concept of dating as a teenager or a young adult in college, because it is different for us. I don't know if you guys are aware or not, but the reasoning and logic part of our brain doesn't even finish developing until our mid-20s or early 30s. A lot of us are past that. The reasoning and logic part of our brain is now finished developing. Many of us made those choices that we made in relationships before logic and reasoning was totally developed in our brain. And now it is set in. For some of us, we're way past that set in stage. We're like, some people call it set in our ways. Okay? But we have that logic and reasoning part of our brain now that is now coming into play in making a choice in relationships. So it's different. So back to healthy relationship development. You're going to start off in just a get to know you type phase. Where most of us are going to meet somebody in a group setting. Say if we're going to a single adult event or whatever, it's going to be more of a group setting. You're going to get to know each other. I would not ask for somebody's number, would not recommend. Some of you may disagree, totally fine. Would not recommend you ask for somebody's number first time meeting them. That's like almost rushing it. Not really almost, just kind of rushing it. And that's like a personal connection. I remember one time this man wanted my phone number and I told him I wouldn't give it to him. And it sounded nicer than that just sounded. But I told him, I said, I just want to take some time to get to know him. I said, we can do this messaging on Facebook, or we can do whatever. because I want to see first what he's going to do. Because he's going to try to message me every day, if he's going to be trying to whatever every day, and I'm going to be like, I don't know if I want to do that. So, thanks, Heidi. Thanks. I appreciate you. So anyway, with the healthy development of a relationship, you just do some get to know you stage. I used to say I wanted somebody to spend at least a month getting to know me and dating, before he held my hand, before he kissed me, before whatever. And I gave it a number of at least 5 dates. I cannot tell you the backlash I got on that from men. Now no longer I don't give them a number of 5 dates. Apparently they got hang-ups with that one. I'm like, okay, never mind, because I didn't want to come across controlling or whatever. But I'm just like, I just want you to spend some time in getting to know me first. And then you go through and you just do some single dating, maybe a month or 2, 3 months. You've got to spend at least 3 months with somebody to get over what we call the honeymoon phase of dating, where they're perfect and you just can't see any flaws with them. And why can't this work? And of course he's the one or she's the one or whatever, right? You've got to get to a point where they annoy you or they do something that you think is like, what were they thinking? Not in a bad way, not in super negative, but you've got to find something, this is going to sound bad, but something that proves they're not perfect, right? Something that's wrong with them. And then you go, wait a minute. And then you get through a conflict together and you overcome whatever. And it's kind of a back and forth. It's almost like a muscle, right? Like to build a muscle, you've got to rip it apart almost. Not that we want to break anybody's heart, and I'm not at all suggesting that. But you've got to build that muscle. If you look at that growth of love like a muscle or like a plant that you're going to nourish, or however, what analogy you want to use. For now, we're going to do muscle. And you've got to strengthen that muscle. You've got to strengthen that love. Let's just say that love part of your life is out of shape. For many of us, it may be, okay? So let's just say that it's out of shape, and you've got to strengthen that muscle. And what you've got to do is you've got to work at it. And there's going to be some stuff, and stuff's going to be kind of hard you've got to get through to strengthen that bond between those two hearts, those two muscles that are going to come together to strengthen that love. I hope that totally makes sense. I don't know. I'm using this analogy. And then through your experiences. So when you get through the first 2 or 3 months, then you decide, do we want to keep doing this, and do you want to date, a little bit more exclusively or whatever? And then you do that. And then you go through a phase of, let's just say another 2 or 3 months of dating exclusively. Now, within the first get to know you, the first 3 months, and then the next 3 months of dating one-on-one or whatever, and this is just a recommendation. This is not, the gospel truth or whatever. But you do want to take some time in getting to know people. My minimum is 6 months to decide if I want to get really serious with somebody. And generally I'll know before then if I do. But a lot of times then after that 6 month time, then that's when the more serious part of your relationship will go, and then that could bring in an engagement. And then you want to spend a little bit of time in being engaged. I've also had people suggest things like playing a Monopoly game with somebody during the first 6 months, or going on a road trip, or doing things that would, like, watch how they are under stress. That to me is huge. I want to see somebody and how they deal with stress. Are they going to be all angry and have a temper tantrum and whatever? Or are they going to be trying to resolve a problem and, figure out a solution to a problem that they're dealing with, right? Like, I want to know how somebody is that way. And when you spend enough time with them to know that, eternity is a long time. This is a serious decision, and some people treat it flippantly, sadly. They rush into it and they think, oh, well, within 2 weeks, I can know if they're the one or not. And they may do that. The Spirit is awesome and can do that for you. And I've known some wonderful people that are blissfully, happily married that happened to them in their 20s. I haven't met a soul yet that's happened to them in their 50s and they're still happily married. So I'm not saying it can't be, and I'm not trying to come across cynical or whatever. I'm just trying to show you realistic and trying to teach you healthy through all of what I have learned through what I've studied and what I've experienced and that kind of thing. And then still getting through the ups and downs in that relationship and the stressors, if you will, of the relationship. Within the first year of marriage, I would not recommend loading on a big stressor or more than one. Like most people are gonna have to move into a new place, right? That's gonna be a big stressor. But I wouldn't add on new job and new school or having a baby or whatever within the first year. Some people, though, because of our nature and our situation, we may have to go into a new marriage, which would ultimately mean a new ward, could mean blending a family, which is a huge stressor, but awesome, can be a great experience. We may have to relocate a job. We may have to have a brand new whatever. Does that make sense? Like these are big stressors, and so all that needs to be talked about and discussed beforehand, how you're going to handle everything. So when we go back, I don't know if you guys watched the webinar in the first month or two that I did, when we talked about the 5 things that everybody must agree on, and this is gospel according to the prophets and the leaders of the church. These are 5 things you must agree on to have a healthy marriage. If you do not agree on these, you will have even additional stressors that will hinder your progress later. And that is religion and the different aspects of religion. That can be money, how you handle, how you budget, how you save, how you whatever. You got to be okay with it all. A lot of single parents, especially single moms, are going to have debt of some kind. Single dads too. Nobody's immune to all of that. You're going to discuss money. Okay, a recreation. You need to figure out stuff you do for fun that you both enjoy. You don't have to enjoy everything that each other does, but you need to be able to find some common ground there that you both enjoy and do together. Parenting. Whether you are parenting children still at home or adult children, parenting is still important that you discuss different aspects and attitudes of parenting. And then last but not least, and the most fun one to talk about once you're engaged, is intimacy and how that's going to play out in your relationships. Most people, even in the church, for some reason, shy away from talking about intimacy. And yet that is so critical and important to talk about. And you want to do it in a safe place. You want to do it within boundaries. I love how Jason pointed out boundaries. We definitely need to set our boundaries. What are your boundaries in a relationship? And all throughout here, we have healthy boundaries. That doesn't make you controlling. It makes you have boundaries and expectations in a relationship that's going to be healthy. All healthy relationships have boundaries. Okay. I just talked for that 15 minutes. I want to turn the rest of the time now over to you guys.
Can I share something?
Oh, definitely. Go right ahead.
So I guess I'm loving the discussion about boundaries, and I don't know if anybody's heard of the book Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend. They also have the book How to Have That Difficult Conversation. I would recommend both of those, and I hope to also read more of their, they have a whole series with like boundaries in dating, boundaries in marriage, etc. But one thing that I've been pursuing that has helped me a ton with boundaries and communication and consent. I don't know if anybody's heard of Cuddle Party, but it's this workshop that the first hour is all about boundaries, communication, consent. And I have been finding like I've noticed exactly what you said about how people shy away from discussing things, how difficult it can be to speak up about both what we like, what we don't like. And I've been noticing like the more I practice it in that kind of like laboratory setting where there are boundaries and safety, I've been able to speak up more. And I know it's like so common to worry that how someone's going to respond to my boundary. So like if I set a boundary that I'm not comfortable with this, now I'm also going to be upset because you're sad that you don't like that I'm not doing the thing you want me to do. And so through this workshop, I've been finding I'm disconnecting from worrying about how people are going to respond to my boundaries. Like I'm not and learning I'm not responsible for how they feel about my boundaries. Like I don't need to be taking care of them and making sure they're always feeling good by giving up what doesn't work for me. And actually, my friend should be meeting me soon to go for a walk, and he actually went to cuddle party with me and found, it was similarly beneficial. But yeah, this boundary thing, like, I think we all need a lot more lessons on it, and I know I have so much more learning yet to do. And when I look back, how much of a difference problems with boundaries have caused in life, and how having boundaries enabled us to have more connection, because when we have the safety of not having to guard against possible uh, breaches because we know people are going to respect them, I feel like it enables us to love a lot more thoroughly and freely because we can fill in the space that otherwise would be filled with fear and uncertainty when there are no boundaries.
Awesome.
So thank you
Thank
for
you so much
bringing
for
that.
sharing that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's an underlying fear of, oh no, what if they don't like me? Well, if they're not going to like you, setting a boundary, that's not a relationship that's going to last.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. The way Larissa was putting it, it's a lot like what we learn as youth growing up as far as boundaries in other parts of our area, like keeping the standards of for the strength of youth. Like you have to decide beforehand so that you don't have to make a choice when the occasion comes up. Like if you're going to a party, you have to decide beforehand, I'm not going to drink, and if somebody offers me a drink, this is what I'm going to do. Same thing with relationships. Like you have to decide what you're comfortable with and what you want out of a relationship, what you're willing to put into the relationship before you even get started. Because if you don't have that kind of framework shaped out beforehand, then you're going to let your emotions take over, and there go your boundaries. I think that's the main thing, is we have to know ourselves and know where we stand and where our boundaries lie. Because for me, I'm a little different than you, Paula. I tend to go a little faster in relationships. I have no problem giving out my number because you know what? In this day of cell phones, I can press a button and it's block that contact and I never hear from them again. And like I'll put in several hours, over a weekend talking to somebody and then go on a date with them Monday or Tuesday or something. I move pretty quick. But I do that because I know what I'm looking for and I know what I have to bring to, a relationship. And the more I get to know somebody quickly, the faster I can kind of weed out people that aren't going to work and, move on to the next one. And, that all starts because I have healthy boundaries. If I didn't, then that would get me in a mess of trouble, like you were talking about, because I've seen in myself in the past, before I learned about boundaries and really examined my own, that yeah, you can get carried away by emotional things and think that you really have feelings for somebody because of the newness and that honeymoon period like you talk about. But when you're a healthy person, you can recognize if somebody else is healthy too or if they're not. And that's huge, because it's sad to say there's a lot of people who are not healthy out there, because we all at this age have gone through some things in our lives, and it shapes us in different ways. Just like any trial can bring us closer to the Lord or further away, same thing with the relationships. We can either learn our lesson from something that happened in a relationship, and use that to shape the way we move forward, or we can beat ourselves up about it or say, see, that just proves that I just can't be, good in a relationship, and that how we allow that to shape us determines how our future relationships are going to be. And it's all kind of ties into boundaries and everything like that.
Anyone else?
Just to kind of go along with what Brian said, it's not always just about the adult time. It's, Monday mornings I'm in meetings. Don't text me. Don't expect me to text you back within 5 minutes. When I have my kids this weekend, I have my kids. Don't expect us to go out this weekend, because until we get to a certain point where I feel comfortable and confident, you're not going to be around my children. So it's communication. For me, it's always been, as I've learned, as I've been progressing through this game show we call dating, it's learning to communicate upfront, saying this is what I will, this is what I will not do, and this is something that we could talk about in the future. I like having boundaries and knowing what the other person likes and expects. That way I'm not kind of like, guessing as far as what their expectations are or what their needs are, wants. I am like Brian. I probably move a little bit faster, just because we all have cell phones, and I do have a screening process, a vetting process. You become Facebook friends, you look at them through Facebook, you kind of get an idea, what's important to them. The other thing is, women are great confessors. They absolutely will tell you the truth. If they say that I will beat you with a bat on Friday, they absolutely are telling you the truth. I'm not. It's an extreme example, but women will be very honest and very upfront as far as things that what they're like. Men a little bit more, we're kind of like hide and seek. We'll let you know as time goes on if we feel like you're, at least for me, throw a little bit, share a little crazy at a little time, that all, share with them a little bit of crazy at a little one time at another. Just build up. You don't give all the crazy all at the same time. I'm not saying the way I want to say it, but I think boundaries are great. If anything, it makes a healthy relationship. It gives everybody their expectations. That way there's no hurt feelings like, why didn't he text me? Oh, that's right, he's in his meetings, and so it helps out. So, but yeah.
Thoughts from anybody else?
I think the thing that's hard for me is I feel like I do a good job of setting boundaries and communicating boundaries. And it kind of goes back to what, give me 2 seconds, Jason was saying about the whole, sometimes guys are a little bit guarded and only let us see a little bit here and there. For me, it's hard to be so open and so vulnerable and give all of my information up front of what my expectations are and set boundaries and are very clear, and information is not necessarily coming as clear back. And then feelings are brought into the whole mix. And then you have to do something really, really, really hard, because you do stick to your boundaries and the boundaries that you've told them about. And that's really hard. That, to me, is frustrating about dating, is I feel like there's not a double standard. I'm not even gonna like try to act like there's a double standard, but I think because women, because Jennifer Williams is very open and is very honest and sets very clear boundaries, and whomever Jennifer Williams decides to date may or may not in the past not be as open and upfront, and didn't allow crazy to come out until after I fell into crazy like, and then show me crazy. That makes me very timid to open myself up to anybody because they might be crazy and are just doing a really good job hiding it from Jennifer. And so I think that there is value in moving slow, but for me, I'm not getting any younger. And so I do see what the guys are saying about maybe the timeline is a little slow. I don't know. I see the value in what you're saying, Paula. I really do, because that allows those feelings that I was talking about to not be tampered with as much. But I don't know. I feel like I'm just rambling right now, but this is something that's crazy important to me, because I feel like I end up not dating because I'm not willing to get hurt, and that sucks. Not a nice way to put it, but that's really hard for me.
Yep. It's that underlying, I don't want this to hurt me. That fear, I think, is what you're doing. I appreciate you sharing that. And let me clarify, when I say take the time, I mean, if you don't get through that honeymoon phase of dating before you get married, it's going to be a lot tougher that first year. 6 months is fine to know somebody and marry them. If that's what you feel like you want to do. But you've got to put some time into developing a healthy relationship from the time you've met them to, but I'm going to tell you, especially with second marriages or third, or for me it's going to be fourth, if you don't put some time into getting to know somebody, it will, just statistically, it is much more of a challenge. I've known of somebody who just this year got married after dating somebody online for 8 months. And in less than a month, they were divorced. And, you know, you can call it what you want to, but they didn't really spend time together a lot until they were married. And that was a challenge for them. I've known of other people who got married. I don't know which number of marriage it was, but they got married within 2 or 3 months of knowing each other, and in less than a year they were divorced. And it happens over and over and over again, because they're not really talking about, they're not really getting to know who that person is. They see the ideal, they see what they want to see. Many of them do. And when you don't, I mean, I'm all for you getting into a relationship within the first month if you think that that's where you need to go and that's what you need to do. Rock on. But what I'm saying is, when you really need to take the time to develop a relationship to get to know somebody before you actually marry them. Because if you're going to get married within 2 to 3 months, expect that marriage to be extremely hard the first year, maybe even the first 5. If you make it 5 years, most people don't on a second or third marriage. If they have only known each other 2 or 3 months and then they get married. I'm just telling you, experience. You're looking at somebody. Go ahead, Jason.
I never would have put a timetable on anybody's love, because, you know, what works for one may not work for the other. But I agree with you. There has to be a certain time to get to know each other. I really like Facebook as far as getting to know somebody, because that gives you a chance to kind of, you get to see somebody without them actually preparing for you to see. My biggest thing is I always go to the about page and I see, you know, what things that they enjoy, especially with members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because if they've got, you know, I love the Book of Mormon, you know, President Nelson, that lets me know as far as, you know, that they're actively engaged or outwardly sharing those things with other people, as opposed to somebody who doesn't. I'm not saying that they're not, you know, they don't have a testimony, they don't believe, but it just, people have a tendency to share what's important to them. And the other thing is I look to see is, you know, what do they post on their Facebook page? You know, is it a selfie every other minute? You know, are they are they actively, you know, from a guy's perspective, women are teasing. Some women are teased. And so I look to see, you know, is she constantly looking for adulation from men, not any men that she's interested in developing a relationship, but just that I need that constant reaffirmation from 1,000 different men, because that carries into the marriage where they're constantly trying to get that affirmation, not just from their spouse, but from other people, which can create problems. I do believe the communication piece is important. I think there's a lot of things that you can discuss as far as in advance, money, bills, children, and I think that comes over with time. I also do think that, I know this is for myself, somebody talk about abandonment issues, we do seem to be, I could sabotage a good relationship in 5 minutes or less. That's always been my kind of thing that I have to kind of work through. But I guess because I've had to interview people so many times that I have to make a decision based on a piece of paper and a 1 to 2 hour conversation with somebody, that I learned to kind of be confident in my decisions as far as whether or not I want to pursue somebody. But like I say, I do a little background check. The other thing I do is I ask a lot of questions. I mean, I ask a ton of questions. That allows me to kind of get to know somebody. And I said this before, we're very, very honest and very upfront. They will, they tell you the truth. They don't hide anything. And that's awesome and amazing. Men are a little bit more, we dole the crazy out a little bit at a time. That's what I meant to say earlier. And we're a little bit harder to kind of, to let information out. But if you ask a lot of questions, we will definitely let you know. People love to talk. And so when I get to know somebody, I ask the questions, I let them talk, and then I listen and then think about it. So, but dating is a great game show. It's an amazing game show. Can't wait to get out of it. Win the grand prize.
Amen. Definitely need to ask some questions to get to know somebody. And I love the Facebook page idea. I'm all about doing that, checking somebody out on Facebook and seeing what they like and don't like. Can't always trust their page, what they post, because it is good. It is also easy to hide behind. And like, for instance, I'm not going to put a lot out there about my family or my kids or whatever. I've got, other issues that I'm not going to put out there. And but I do love that though, because I really try to avoid people who go off on rants all the time. I'm like, I don't want that, because if you're going to rant on Facebook, oh honey, it's going to be so hard to live with. So I do look for things like that. But I totally agree with you. I also Google the person. I will Google their name, make sure they're real, make sure they live where they say they live. I even ask for their bishop's name or their ward name. If I can get their ward name, I can look up their bishop's name, and I will call their bishop. I have no problem doing that. I don't always do that, but I will do that occasionally.
Yeah, I actually had somebody, ask for my bishop's name and then called him and asked about me, and I wasn't offended at all because I don't have anything to hide. And I was like, that's actually a really smart way to do kind of a background check on somebody, So I think that's a good idea in some circumstances,
Thank you. What I have found is that men that are upset or offended by that, you don't want to be dating. A healthy man, a man that's going to be in a healthy relationship with you, won't care about that.
And then just to add to what Jason said, I think, I agree as far as it's kind of, to me, it's almost an interview process, like knowing what questions to ask and what things to talk about yourself as well goes a long way towards knowing whether you want to date somebody or not, depending on, the things that they're into, the views that they have, their personality. Like, you can ask some questions that get to that, to your point, like you were talking about, if you ask about, their past marriage and all they just go off on their ex, that there's some, they're not telling the whole truth, or they're not seeing it, from both sides or whatever. You want somebody who can do an honest assessment and say, yeah, they did some bad things, but I wasn't perfect either, and here's what I've learned. Those kind of things. And I like to get into those conversations, fairly early on to know, okay, is this somebody I really want to date or not? Do I, move on to somebody else and not waste either of our time?
Okay, so can I interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
What questions, this is for you and Jason or anybody else that wants to answer this question. What questions do you ask?
So, like I said, talk about your past marriage. I like to ask about activities and interests, because if it's somebody that all they like to do is say bake and watch Netflix, they might not be very compatible with me. Like if I'm like, hey, what do you think about hiking? They're like, I don't like the outside. Like I never go outside unless I have to. That might not be a very good match for me. Obviously things about kids and about church as well, like kind of what kind of things they do with their kids, and what their schedule is like with their kids as well, because that if you're trying to work things out that way, that can be a deal breaker very early on. If their kid's schedule is like the opposite of yours, and they live a few hours away and can't move, and you can't move either, things like that. And then obviously about the gospel, like get into some gospel conversations, be like, hey, and come follow me, last night I was reading about this, what are your thoughts on that? Or what have you learned, and come follow me this week, things like that, to get an idea of what their testimony is like, and get an idea of what their how they live their gospel. I know one of the talks this past general conference was what was it, like committed or casual? I don't think that's what it was, but it was like, do we live the gospel just casually as it's convenient for us, or do we live it as a central part of our life? And then talking about relationships, not romantic relationships, but just relationships in their lives, like how what's their relationship like with their parents or with their siblings, things like that can also give you a good idea of just generally what their life is like and what they're like as a person. And I will caveat, if you ask all these questions, be prepared to answer them too, because it's not fair for it to be a one-sided thing. So be prepared to answer all those kind of questions, and be honest, like be honest and upfront about who you are, and what's important to you. If somebody's like, oh, I just absolutely love going to the movies 3 times a week, and you haven't been to a movie in a year, don't be like, oh yeah, me too. Be honest about things.
I also had an experience, I'm assuming it's okay to share again.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So there was someone that I had met online that was kind of offering a business proposition, and I don't want to say it, I just had a tense feeling, and like I didn't want to move forward. And so he claimed that he had been from whatever area for like all his life, and when I contacted that bishop, they'd never heard of him. So that was an interesting development. And I don't know if anyone here has watched the recent devotional. It was for like it wasn't just young singles, it was just like young including married people, but they basically, one of the suggestions was in the same way that missionaries ask for referrals, to ask your friends for referrals. And I know that I've had a detailed list of what I've been looking for like half my life, and along with what you said earlier, like also what am I bringing to the table and what do I have to offer. And I'm getting to the point now where I think I am actually going to do just a few little edits and then give it to some friends and be like, hey, you know, not that I'm like so actively seeking, but I had one good friend that, you know, suggested someone to me that I'm like, are you serious? Like that is not anything that I would want. I don't know what they thought of me that they thought that would be a good idea, but I feel like this, yeah, referrals I like. And I did know a girl who I guess asked her friend, and now she's married. It's like a set of questions that get more personal, and it was done as some kind of like study that it makes people feel really close and bonded. But I've done it with just friends, and it has been really interesting to get to know them in ways that I've known them for years and getting to know a new layer. So for me, those are some questions that I like to exchange with people. But I value that which has been said so far, and if I can remember, I'm going to try to add those to my list too.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Anybody else?
You asked about questions.
Yes.
One of the questions I ask, and this is one of the vetting questions, is what do you do for work for living? Because, you know, if somebody's a school teacher, then they're not a wanted felon. You know, you can kind of gauge based on their employment that, you know, what kind of individual they are, and kind of like an instant background check just based on that answer to that one question. The other thing is kind of knowing when somebody's telling the truth or not. If you're on the phone with somebody, you can't look at their you can't look at any visual clues. But one of the things you could do is that when somebody's telling the truth, and this is more for the ladies, I guess, they will add details to a question. So if you say, you know, what kind of car do you have? Well, you know, I have a 2015 Honda Pilot. Oh yeah, I remember. And they add things to that. When somebody's telling the truth, they add details to the question. One of the easiest questions I ask is kind of always opens up a Pandora's box, I guess, if you want to, just a bad analogy is, you know, where do you live? How long have you lived there? You know, how did you end up moving there? And then you kind of just add follow-up questions. You ask them an open-end question, and you follow up with that question, and then you kind of get a little biography on them. The other thing I do, and I want to put a caveat this, is I absolutely ask people not to confess their sins to me, you know, because there are people out there who will say, you know, when I was 19, you know, I did this and that. I'm like, I want to know who you are today. We don't need to confess your sins, because that's that kind of, you know, we're not into that part of the relationship yet, where one, I don't know if I want to know, and two, I don't know if it's something we really need to discuss at this point. But the two questions I always ask is, you know, what do you do for a living? And I don't want to know specifics, just kind of what do you do, and then where do you live, and how long have you lived there, and then just kind of dovetails into other subjects. The other thing I will add, this is more for guys, is that I always ask myself, can I afford the woman? Because if you look at pictures of women, they, you know, if they're in Hawaii hanging out, and then Alaska, I can't afford, you know, to spend $1,000 a week on vacation trips and stuff. And so I have to, you know, she may be a beautiful, captivating woman, but I also have to understand what I can and can't do. Like Clint Eastwood said, you know, man's got to know his limitations. And I'm not discounting any woman like that, but if that's the kind of man that she's looking for, then I'm not going to waste her time or my time, because we're not going to fulfill each other's needs in a relationship. So knowing what you can provide and what their needs also helps out a lot. That way you're not having to, you know, you're not trying to create a whole new yourself just to be with somebody. At the end of the day, that you're going to be, it's going to be more, you know, dance, monkey, and work than what it's worth. You're not going to be yourself. And with that, I cue the music.
Okay. Others?
This probably was already, I don't know if this was said or not. My internet kept going out, so I had to get on my phone so that I could participate in here. So I missed a little bit. But one of the most important questions for awareness. And so I asked them, what role did they play in their past relationships not working? And so if they can admit their shortcomings and their weaknesses, then there's a level of responsibility being taken and a level of awareness of their own doing. And so that's very, very important to me, for them to be able to admit a weakness, admit some fault, take some responsibility and their choices and their limitations. That's important. And I wanted to share an example of, my mom would probably kill me. This was a little bit before, before we got on this subject. Was my mom dated a guy, her last marriage, for over a year. It was online dating, and he was in the Philippines. And her bishop and his bishop communicated regularly. They talked all the time, and she kind of followed, I guess, the guidelines as you would for an online dating relationship or whatnot. She visited him once or twice. They talked often, but he ended up coming here, and they did get married and sealed in the temple. And he within a year came out as gay. So I wanted to share that even following the bishop guidelines and going through that is not a guarantee that you're gonna have a great relationship or it's gonna be successful just because your bishop spoke, they're or communicated. So that's still a risk. With everything we take, it's gonna be a risk. So I guess the biggest key is having the Holy Ghost with you so that you can differentiate between what's best for you for real.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, anyone else?
I think we're talking about questions we ask people correct?
Yes.
I think the real key is keeping on those 5 topics that you mentioned earlier and just asking open-ended questions and listen and listen and listen and ask questions, in-depth questions. Like, for example, someone's married to a successful individual and they walk away from a relationship for the marriage with nothing. That's a red flag. What happened? And and so it also might indicate the style of spending that person has or their spouse had. You don't know, because I know some spouses will spend all the money and blame the other, and vice versa. I think the key is listening, really listening. And I think what Jason said, I think females are a little more open, and they will talk a lot longer after you ask a question than a man will. We kind of hold our cards close to the vest a little bit. So, ladies, you need to figure out how to get us to open up, ask the right questions. So, my thought.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, anyone else want to share your questions that you ask?
Paula, I'll say this and I'll be quiet. Whether or not they like pineapple on their pizza, because I can't stand pineapple. So that could be a deal breaker. So.
Oh, good to know.
So
good to know.
Where pineapple sits in their life, that's important. So.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys have heard of a Ford method of asking questions, and that is family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Those are generally great topics to start with when you first meet somebody and you're just in that get to know you stage. I wouldn't go into a lot of vulnerable questions until you are dating more regularly. For instance, Heidi, I would wait for that question until you've gone through that get to know you stage. Just a suggestion. If you feel like you need to ask it earlier on, though, you do that. But for me, there are some of the questions that you guys have said that you asked early on. I actually felt it in my stomach going, "Oh, I wouldn't want that question. Oh, I wouldn't want that question." An answer to your question of, what was the cause of, or what happened with your last marriages? I don't answer that in a get to know you stage. I will let somebody know I'm divorced. I will let somebody know that I have 5 kids. I might even let somebody know that I have been married 3 times, very rarely. Because what stemmed from all that puts me in a vulnerable state. And so I want to be with somebody that I can trust with that information. So I will give you basic, I'll give you surface stuff. I might even give you a watered down version, but I'm not going to talk to somebody a lot about this during that get to know you stage. You guys know more about me than most men I date, and then get to know you stage anyway. But anyway, it's just one of those things where I don't want to go, if you're in that get to know you, whatever, I'm all about talking about religion. Definitely talk about religion. That is huge deal breaker for me, as it is and needs to be for most of us. But what I have found when it comes to religion is that there are different aspects of our religion that you still need to agree on. And for some, it's still a challenge. For instance, Sundays and what you do on Sundays to keep the Sabbath day holy could be a deal breaker for some people. For some men, watching sports, that's a deal breaker for some women. And then the temple attendance. For me, that's a huge one. I want somebody that has a temple recommend and uses it. Because somebody with a temple recommend and does not use it is no better off than somebody who can't go to the temple. So that's a huge factor. And quite honestly, a lot of times we have single adult temple trips, whatever, and a lot of women will be like, well, where are the men? And why weren't there more men in the temple session? And I'm just letting you know, feedback from the women, we want to see the men in the temple. That's a huge thing, right? And for women, if you're too much of an open book in the beginning, you're like, I don't know if you guys remember my plant analogy a couple months back, where you're dumping that 50-pound bag of fertilizer on somebody, on that seed you just planted. You just want to plant a seed and develop a relationship. Give them a little bit at a time. Don't dump it all on there the first time. I've gone out with men within the last, year or 2 maybe, and I've had 2 men within the first day share with me everything, so much so that I was like, I just need to go home. And it was just stuff that was beyond my comfort zone and way beyond what I wanted to handle, and it was just way too much. It was they overshare. So you don't want to overshare that either, okay? Okay, back to religion. Word of wisdom's a huge deal with some people. Health, that code of health, that's actually one of my deal breakers. Somebody that lives healthy and has a healthy lifestyle. And then you have somebody that, what other aspect? Scripture study. Do they read scriptures? I don't ask. Do you read scriptures? I ask. So what are you studying in the scriptures right now? I don't want to go, hey, do you have a temple recommend? I say, hey, what's your favorite temple? And how often do you get to go to the temple? Okay, so there are different questions that you can ask still in a very nice, get to know your way as far as religion goes, to know. There are, different aspects of even activity in the church. Some people will complain, hey, I'm not going to go to church if it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Just know that I'm not going to be there. It has to be this time, then I'll go. For me, I don't like 9 o'clock church, but I'm going to be there if it's at 9 o'clock, So they're just know that there are different ways of asking different questions. Are you one of those that go to every social that the church has? Are you at every elders forum activity? Are you at every religious society, whatever? Are you at whatever? You're going to want to know it. But that level of activity, are you expecting that? Do you want to serve a mission when you're older? There's some people that don't. you want to ask about just different aspects of the religion that are important to you. And that's the caveat. What's important to me may not be important to you. There's some things that are. There are some people that are okay with R-rated movies and some people that are not. There are some people that are okay with drinking Coke. Some people are not. That makes sense? Like, you've got to get in, not just, hey, do you go to church on Sunday? Or are you a member of the church? We've got to get in even more, because religion is one of the number one reasons people get a divorce. And not agreeing on that aspect of religion. When it comes to money, we do want to know, again, I love how you guys pointed out money and issues with that and spending habits and that kind of thing. So, so there are just different aspects of parenting. There's some okay with spanking a child and some people not. Some people okay with, not having their kids have a job, and some people are they're like, no, my kid's got to work, kind of thing. And there are just whatever's a deal breaker to you, whatever aspect of it that it may be, it's huge, and you got to bring that in and give relationships a chance to build, to be able to get to know each other and to develop. And if it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you gave it a shot. But if you let fear determine whether or not you're dating, or you let that underlying whatever, then this is not going to happen. Now, if you know beforehand different things that you want, looking for, whatever, realistically, then you know whether or not to date somebody. And I love how you guys, especially the man Jason and Brian, brought up different questions that you ask that are important to you. That's exactly what you guys did, and that's awesome to know if you want to date somebody. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to set those boundaries. So I want you guys to determine, what kind of person do you want to date? What type of person do you want to have a relationship with? And then I want you to list all those aspects out. Then I want you to list, like if you would just take a piece of paper and put a column down the middle, or a line down the middle, make 2 columns. On one side, list what you're looking for, and don't get too specific, like, unless you just have to have a brunette or have to have a blonde or whatever. Don't get too specific. But just like characteristics of the person that you're looking for. Then on the right side, I want you to list the characteristics you have. Are they compatible? One of the biggest, I'm just going to be honest here with you, one of the biggest issues a lot of women have with some men is health. Some of it's their weight, and men and women both have issues with weight both ways. Just the reality of it, right? Because how you take care of yourself is how you're going to take care of the marriage. And it shows self-love to be able to take care of yourself. If you cannot demonstrate that, then you're not going to be able to love somebody else as they need to be loved. Now, I'm not talking a little out of shape or whatever. I'm talking if you've got unresolved issues with your health in any way, that needs to be addressed. There's, especially when we're looking at it long term, right? Now, and I told you health's one of my deal breakers, but I'm going to tell you that for a lot of women and men, I hear it both ways. There are men that will look at a woman, and if she's overweight, they won't date her. Some men will even not date a woman if she's too thin, right? And I'm like, what the heck? So it's kind of funny, because there are some women that will be like, well, I'm too big, and that's why I don't date. And for some women, it's a protection. My mom was somewhere between 300 and 400 pounds. She was a single mom from the time I was 17. And she was a member of the church. She dated off and on, but not a whole lot. But she did tell me, within the 10 years before she passed away, because she passed away at 61 of breast cancer, she said, Paula, my weight has been a protection. It's been like a shield, a protection against hurt. I knew men wouldn't want me if I was this big. So sometimes we've got to get honest with ourselves and realize that our health and how we present ourselves to the world and to each other is huge, huge, okay? So, but it's kind of funny though, because some of these women that may be bigger, lovely women that, and I, my great friends are, overweight, and they'll say, "Oh, but Paul, I bet you date all the time," but I don't, because my thing is, I come across too strong. I come across too independent, too confident, too whatever it is. I've been told I'm too whatever a lot. But getting past that mindset of realizing I'm just attracting a different caliber, or I want to get to a point where I attract a different caliber. So, and again, not in a cocky or arrogant way, because I can be a very humble woman, and it is something that I think I'm talking too much. But anyway, just know that can be an issue, and it goes both ways. There's a lot of women that get really annoyed with men that want thin women, but they're big. So just so you know, I'm just going to put that out there for everybody. I'm going to have people watching the recording and everything, and I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm just letting you know that at this stage of the game, when people are making lists and they're looking at longevity of a marriage, they're looking for potential in that. So for many, health is an issue. Oh, and then there's politics. Thank you, Fred. Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts? Sorry, I know I've been talking a lot tonight. Anyone? All right, so in-laws. I know, right? You marry the family, right, Brian? Ooh, marry the family. All right, yeah, we got two Brians here, Brian Kellogg and Brian Poole, and so whoever I refer to, I'm referring to one or the other. All right, so next week, we're going to continue our topic on dating, but we're going to actually get into things to do on dates. It's going to be a little bit more fun. I know tonight we talked some, we talked heavier stuff, if you will, but I want to get into when we're actually dating, what we do, how we do it, and then we'll get into a little bit more of a different topic involving relationships, okay? And then we'll also be talking about parenting, single parenting, like when to bring the kids in and whatever. There's a lot of different things we'll be talking about. Anybody else want to share anything before we sign off for tonight? I just want to thank you guys. You guys are so awesome. I'm getting such great feedback when you guys participate, when you guys offer your comments and, talk about how you feel and everything. It's just so incredibly awesome to be able to do that. So I really appreciate you guys logging on Sunday night, spending your Sunday evenings with me, and sharing your thoughts. And I love it when you don't agree with me, actually, because I don't want people to necessarily agree with me, because my way is not always the right way. It's just my way.
I had a comment or a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
One thing I like to ask, I was kind of late to the conference, so I didn't know what we're talking about, but I like to ask about family relationships, like their siblings, their parents, their kids. Where are they? What are they doing? What is their relationship like with them, and that sort of thing? Because I think it gives me insight into some of their history and their interaction with relationships.
Okay, awesome. That's great. Okay, so we're gonna do a continuation, if you will, of dating next week. Anything else you guys want to talk about or comment? I really do appreciate this. I'm going to stop the recording.
I want to say thank you.